Hey LinkedIn, I wrote a short post about this last week, but I was just gonna comment on it further. I was looking around. I was actually looking for just various different tools that are out there, various different sales softwares, and somehow I got on this thing, and I was looking at some sites, and sure enough, on those sites there was some demo or sort of demo type videos, but they're really not demos. And I think it's important. My point of the post was it's important to think about when you put yourself in the shoes of the buyer and you think about what's happening. Like as you arrive at the site, you start thinking about what is actually happening, and really putting yourself in their shoes to think, what is it that they want at this exact stage, where they're at, what are they thinking about, what are they looking at? That's important, because otherwise you're going to lose people. And anyway, I click on the video and it's a talking head, and they're talking about things that are not important to the prospect or buyer, and the buyer at this stage doesn't even understand. They just click on the site, and they're now talking about sort of jargony, like nomenclature type concepts about the product that they built. And when you really put yourself in the shoes of the buyer, it's like, who cares? They don't care. They're really going, well, but how does it solve my problem, and what's the exact, what exactly does it do? And so you really have to sort of obsessively think about the buyer and then hold yourself back from sort of communicating the things that you just want to say or that you want them to hear, because you have to do a good job of addressing that point and communicating to the buyer in a way that they understand, so you're going to hook them, and so they're going to invest further time and then want to set up a phone call with the sales team, or do a trial or whatever it is, try the product, or do a call with the sales team or whatever it is. But you definitely don't want to exasperate them or frustrate them where they don't know, and then you end up leaving it. And this happens all the time. You go to sites and you're like, I don't even know what you're talking about, and they're talking about the product. So when you think about what should it be, if it's going to be an animation or it's going to be a talking head, it should be very quickly playing into how it solves the problem. You got to know what problem. If your customers come to your site, you got to know what problem they're coming for. You have to know what that is, and if it's several, then have things to address it. But you got to make sure that you tackle those things with enough emphasis is going to drive them in further into that sales cycle and book a call or whatever. And the other thing is, I went to a different site, and it was I was actually looking for a product, and it was this chart making site, and you go down the site, and there was a quote from their customer that was actually excellent quote, and it said, hey, we use it to do these things, and it does the exact way. And my immediate thought as a prospect, as a buyer, was, how? I'd like to see that. I'd like to see how they do that. And what a lot of companies do is they'll create a testimonial or a use case for the customer from the standpoint of the company, but what really should be done is sort of a interview with the actual customer in a documentary style of collecting how do they use it. That's really what a buyer's looking at, is how are they using it, rather than here's how the company wants to showcase that. So you really want to make it authentic and play everything towards the buyer, the prospect, the person that's there, and try and get away from communicating from yourself, from the company, from the brand as much as possible, because you got to tailor it to make it authentic, so you're really not creating frustration or exasperation for the buyer, and it's linear to the journey that they're on, and it's serving up the right content at the right stage where they're going, yeah, that's awesome, that answers my question, that's what I want, while also kind of hooking and moving it forward where they're going to book a call and go to the next stage. And obviously there's some companies that do things really, really well, but there's many that don't. And that only means that marketing is harder, more efforty. Sales is harder, more efforty. And by doing these things the right way, it's going to make those things, less efforty, a lot easier. It's going to make marketing teams' life easier, sales teams' life easier, right? So something to think about. All right, hope you like it, and love to hear any comments.